Welcome back to Politics Done Right with Egberto Willies. It's always a pleasure for me to bring some of the Daily Coast contributing editors, because these are the people who form the progressive dialogue, the progressive narrative. I've met Frank Vyan, I guess 5 years ago or so, at one of the Netroots nations, I believe.
It was in Detroit in 2014 that we first got
2014,
together.
absolutely so. And very impressed with Frank. Now, Frank, tell us a little bit about what you write about, first off, so that our audience can know what they'll see.
Wow, that's a difficult question, because I'd like to cover more than one particular subject in general. I mean, I'm not necessarily a one-note writer. There's a great many challenges that the world, and especially America these days, are facing. So I try to address them as they come up. These days, I'm mostly writing about Trump or things related to Trump.
It's hard not to.
It's impossible not to if you're invested in the ideas of equality and justice and safety for all Americans in so many different ways. It tends to be the monster that eats up everything. So every once in a while, I put that aside and I'll write about something else. And there's a lot of different subjects I've delved into over the years, about 12 years or so, that I've been writing on Coast. The issue of Medicare for All is a hot topic these days. I was a heavy writer.
What's your thoughts on Medicare for All?
I'm a supporter. I was just talking to Sanjeev, who's running the upcoming caucus on Medicare for All, and a panel on that tomorrow about that. And when the Affordable Care came out, that we had quite a bit of debate internally amongst progressives about how that was going to be implemented. There was a strong support for the public option by the more progressive wings. I was more of a centrist on that issue without getting all the way into it. But the idea there is that publicly financed healthcare is less expensive than private care. That's pretty much
a certainty.
That has so far been proven across the board. Within the United States, that's been proven, comparing the cost for Medicare Part A and B versus Medicare Advantage. Those people who say they want to privatize Medicare or basically make as private a system as possible have failed to explain why they don't want to go with the more cost-efficient option or expand that option, as opposed to these other private-based things.
We know the answers to that. I write about it all the time, and that is just corporate greed. The other way, we try to extract a profit from every exchange in this country.
But is that profit generating value and benefit for the people that are the that's the argument needs to be made more toward. Are you producing a system that is more effective at your goal, produces better outcomes at a better price, as opposed to whether you're enriching Wall Street investors who happen to be putting their money in or against certain particular companies.
And Vyan, that is our job. Our job as progressive writers, our job as contributing editors to Daily Coast and wherever else we write, is to make that narrative, because the narrative that they've made is to say, well, it is more efficient, the market works better. You and I and most progressives know better, and those folks who are real mathematicians also know better. It makes absolutely no sense that that profit, which turns out to be an expense in the medical sphere, is somehow not seen as detrimental to healthcare. Now, real quickly, I want to touch on another subject.
Okay.
A few years back, you wrote a chilling article on the differences in those who carry guns. What it would look like if some carry guns while others don't.
Wow. I've written about 1,000 articles, so I'm going to have to give you a little bit more hint on that one. I have written a lot about that, and I may just have to speak to it in more general terms. One of the thoughts that I have about that, and this may be what you're referring to, is I grew up in South Central LA, which had its challenges. But I'm old enough that I missed some of the more violent parts of it. But they were coming. I could see them coming. But one of the things that I noticed about it is that basically everyone was armed. You know, you go out on a date with somebody, young lady, dad had a stack of rifles right behind the door.
Right.
Everyone there is armed. And from that experience, I've sort of looked at it from the NRA's point of view, is that guns make us safe because if everyone's armed, no one would shoot. Because you never know who's going to shoot back or who's going to, you know. Well, my living experience is that does not work.
Exactly.
The reason it doesn't work is that if you're armed and you suspect your potential target is armed, what you do is find some other advantage. We used to have something called car thievery.
Mm-hmm.
Suddenly that turned into carjacking.
Right.
Why did that happen? Because
the locks for the cars and better locks, etc.
Well, also the drivers were likely to be armed.
Right.
In LA, they are. So rather than, well, let me back up. That's true too. But what they wanted to do is catch you when all your alarms are off.
Right.
That's
Exactly.
the better argument of it. Is that the club isn't there.
Right.
All your security's turned off. You're driving the car. They catch you by surprise with a weapon when you're unable to quickly, easily access your own or help, and just quickly get you out of the car, take the car. You know, mission accomplished. I've committed car thievery. It used to be that we had burglaries, but suddenly they became home invasions.
Right.
Because we want to catch you when your alarm is turned off. We want to catch you not when you're away from home and you've got Ring that can. They want to catch you when you are home. Walk in the door, put a gun in your face, and then you have control of the situation, and so it escalates. You wind up in an arms race.
Right.
You wind up not with shootings. You wind up with you wind up with drive-by shootings.
Exactly.
Why are they driving by to shoot? Because they expect that the people they're shooting at might also have guns.
Right.
So they want to attack from surprise. They want to attack where they have an easy method of escape. They can get in, out. And now they're not even hitting their target. Right. They're hitting quinceañeras. They're hitting the neighbors. They're killing all kinds of people besides the ones they're actually trying to actually injure. So we have a Wild West situation that's even wilder than the original West was. In Dodge City, that's during the ERPs, that was a gun-free zone. You couldn't enter this town with your weapon. You had to check your weapon at the city limits. And now we're saying we want more guns in here. And we're having more and more tragedies. And the highest number of tragedies has nothing to do with self-defense. We don't talk about this enough because, we're afraid we have no solution for it. But most gun deaths, 60% of gun deaths are suicides.
Right. And, that is very important for us to understand. I mean, the reality is that having more guns don't make you safer. Having more guns make it more likely that you will kill yourself. And you'll kill yourself,
or someone in your family will be killed by an intruder or whatever. But all that comes together in we need a more effective strategy if we're talking about genuine safety. I'm not anti-gun. I'm pro-gun. I believe in the Second Amendment in the original sense that a lot of people argue for it, that it is the ultimate defense against tyranny. But what were the circumstances of where that tyranny might be implemented? Right. Might that tyranny be implemented by your local police? Might they be implemented by federal troops coming at you? And really, do you want to get into literally an insurgency situation? The people that support the Second Amendment have to really think about, do they want to be Fallujah? Exactly. Okay, because that's what they're really talking about. Right. Is there literally be an insurgent rebel on the run force against U.S. federal troops or the FBI, the Homeland Security. That's what they're really talking about. But really, it made a nice movie, but Red Dawn is just a movie, okay?
But Mr. Frank Vyan Walton, Daily Coast editor, contributing editor.
Yes.
Somebody that I followed probably before I even knew you.
Well, I think you did because when we met, it's like I was so shocked that people even knew me at all. I walked up to Marcos the very first time, and he just gave me a big hug, and I was like, "Oh, you know me."
Actually, you write some great pieces. So look, it was a pleasure having you on.
Okay,
And,
yeah, you too.
keep up the good
You do
work.
great work to yourself. I mean, I read a lot of your stuff.
You keep up the good work.